Let me ask you something honestly. How many opportunities have you already lost? Not because women weren't interested, but because you completely missed the moment. You thought she was just being friendly, just making small talk, just asking random questions. And by the time you realized there was something more underneath it, she was already gone. That is the mistake most men make, especially mature men. They assume attraction has to look obvious, loud, direct, impossible to misunderstand. But that is not how it usually works, especially with women who are emotionally intelligent, socially aware, and careful about how they reveal desire. They don't walk up and spell it out for you. They don't hand you certainty. They test for safety first, for competence, for direction, for emotional steadiness. And they often do it through questions that sound completely harmless on the surface. That is what most men never understand. They listen to the words, but they miss the intention. And when you miss the intention, you miss the opening. So today I'm going to show you 2 questions women often ask when they are trying to figure out whether a man is emotionally available, grounded, and worth getting closer to. Not because these questions are magic, but because they reveal what she is really trying to feel from you. And if you respond the wrong way, you kill the tension, you flatten the moment, you make yourself forgettable. But if you respond the right way, calmly, clearly, without over-explaining, you create something most men never create: emotional pull. And that is what changes everything. If you've ever walked away from an interaction wondering if she was actually interested, stay with me, because by the end of this, you're going to start hearing what most men completely miss. Now let's get into it. The first question is, do you spend a lot of time alone? On the surface, this sounds harmless, ordinary, even boring, and that's exactly why men miss it, because they hear it as information gathering, when in reality, it's emotional scanning. She's not asking about your schedule. She's trying to understand what kind of space exists in your life. Is there room for someone? Are you emotionally open? Are you seeing someone? Do you enjoy your solitude because you're grounded or because you're disconnected? That is what she's really asking. And most men ruin this immediately by answering in the flattest way possible. Yeah, I'm alone most of the time, pretty much, just me. Dead energy, no signal, no emotional tone, no sense of who you are. And that's the problem, because attraction is not built from information, it's built from what your answer makes her feel. A weak answer tells her nothing. A needy answer tells her too much. But a strong answer communicates availability without sounding empty. Something like, I enjoy my space, but I make room for the right energy. Or, I like being on my own, but good connection is always worth my time. Feel the difference. You're not begging, you're not oversharing. You're showing that your life has structure, that your time has value, that connection is welcome, but not automatic. And that matters, because a mature woman is not looking for a man who is just available. She's looking for a man who is selective without being closed, open without being desperate, interested without being needy. And that balance is rare, and rarity creates attraction. A woman is not just evaluating whether you are single. She is evaluating what your emotional environment feels like. Does your solitude feel peaceful or lonely? Does your independence feel grounded or defensive? Does your answer make her feel like entering your world would be meaningful, or like she would just be filling a void? That distinction changes everything, because a woman does not want to feel like she is being used to fix your emptiness. She wants to feel like stepping into your life would add to something already solid. Once you understand that, you stop answering like a bored man giving facts, and start answering like a man who understands his own life. And here's what makes this even more interesting. A woman may ask this question in different forms. Are you usually on your own? Do you like being alone? You seem like someone who keeps to himself. Do you spend much time at home? Different words, same intention. She's checking for space, and more importantly, whether your energy feels like a place she would want to enter. If your answer feels flat, uncertain, or empty, the tension dies. But if your answer feels grounded, calm, and quietly open, the tension grows. Now the second question is, what are you looking for right now? This question is much bigger than most men realize, because she's not just asking about dating, she's asking about direction, clarity, emotional maturity. She wants to know whether you are drifting or whether you actually know yourself. Most men answer this terribly. They say, I don't know, I'm just seeing what happens. I'm chilling, nothing serious. These answers aren't always wrong, but they sound passive, undefined, disconnected, and that's what turns women off. Not because she wants immediate commitment, but because uncertainty without depth feels unstable, and instability does not build attraction. Clarity does. That doesn't mean you need to sound intense or rehearsed. It means your answer should reflect how you move through life. Something like, I'm open to something real, but I don't force connections that aren't aligned. Or, I value honesty and depth, and I pay attention when something feels right. These answers show standards, awareness, and emotional direction. And direction is attractive. When she asks what you are looking for, what she really wants to feel is this. Is this a man with clarity? Can he hold his center? Will being around him feel grounded or confusing? That is the real test. And the men who understand this don't answer like they're filling out a form. They answer in a way that reveals their values and their pace. And that is what makes a woman lean in. Let's go deeper. Many men think attraction is mostly about looks, money, or status. And those things matter, but they are not the full story, especially not with mature women. Mature women listen for congruence. Does your tone match your words? Does your body language match your answer? Does your energy feel rushed, performative, or needy? Or does it feel calm and grounded? Because women are constantly reading what is underneath what you say. That's why two men can say almost the same thing, and one feels magnetic, while the other feels forgettable. One is rooted in what he says, the other is trying to say the right thing, and women feel that instantly. That's the part most men never train, not lines, but presence, state, delivery. That's why some men say very little and still leave a strong impression, because what she remembers is not just what you said, but how it felt to be around you. That is the real game. Not tricks, not manipulation, but learning how to hold yourself in a way that creates both trust and tension. And here is something important. Not every question is a sign of attraction, and this is where many men make mistakes. A confident man does not assume. He observes patterns, tone, eye contact, timing, warmth, and looks at the full interaction, not just one moment. That is what keeps you grounded, because the goal is not to believe every woman wants you. The goal is to recognize when genuine interest is actually there. And now, let's talk about the biggest mistake men make once they think interest is present. They rush. The moment they sense attraction, they lunge emotionally, verbally, physically, and the energy collapses. Because tension needs space, interest needs room to breathe. A woman does not feel safer because you rush to act. She feels safer when you remain calm in the presence of possibility. That is composure, and composure is attractive. If she asks whether you spend time alone, you don't need to push the conversation forward aggressively. If she asks what you are looking for, you don't need to sell yourself. The stronger move is slower, cleaner, more grounded. You answer clearly, then you observe. Does she ask more? Does her tone soften? Does the eye contact change? Does the conversation deepen? That is how you read attraction, not through imagination, but through attention. This is why the men who succeed are not the ones doing the most. They are the ones noticing the most. They understand that attraction builds quietly, in small shifts, in subtle changes in tone, in pauses, in moments most men ignore. And the men who are too eager, too loud, too desperate to turn every spark into something bigger, usually ruin it, because they cannot sit in tension without trying to control it. But the men who can do that become unforgettable, not because they forced anything, but because they made the interaction feel natural, real, and emotionally engaging without losing themselves. So here is the truth. When a woman asks, "Do you spend a lot of time alone, and what are you looking for right now?" she may be doing much more than making conversation. She may be testing for depth, steadiness, clarity, and emotional safety. And if you respond like a man who knows himself, without overreaching, without becoming needy, without performing, you create something rare, a feeling that being around you is different. And once a woman feels that, she remembers it. That is why this matters. Not because you learned answers, but because you learned to hear what is underneath the words. And once you hear that layer, you stop missing what is right in front of you. If this opened your eyes, subscribe, because in the next video, I'm going to show you the 3 mistakes men make right after a woman shows interest. Mistakes that instantly flatten attraction and make her pull away. And once you see them, you won't make them again.